Hello, everyone. Welcome to Patriots 3, Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. And here's your hosts, Tim, Tanya, and our special guest, Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. We're going to be covering a handful of things tonight, that doesn't just affect California or the West Coast for that matter. It affects the entire nation. So I definitely want everybody to watch, tune in, and get this liked, shared, and follow, and follow along with Tim Holliday TV, because we're out there doing quite a bit, to bring things forward, and keep you guys well informed of what's all happening. So I'm going to bring in our guest, Brad Dacus. He's the president as well as an attorney. He's with the president of the Pacific Justice Institute, and that's pji.org. So I definitely want to get that pronounced very well. I'll put that into the chat in just a moment. Brad, so we're going to be covering some things in regards to women's privacy and gender identity, the First Amendment and religious rights, and there's a gala, so we'll be definitely talking about that, toward the later part of the show. So, Brad, a lot going on across, not just California. There's some things going on in Washington. There's you before we went live, you were talking about something going on in New Jersey. So let's talk a little bit about the Pacific Justice Institute and what's all happening.
You bet. And we have cases all over across the country, over 130 cases in active litigation, and that doesn't include all the other people we're just helping with different issues. But we're very active, and we've got a very high success rate too. I'll tell you, Tim and Tanya, the last 3 years we've probably had highest percentage of wins than we've ever had. It's unbelievable the success that we're seeing. And we're seeing it's because of the fantastic court appointments, in large part by President Trump, and on the federal court, on the federal bench, not just the Supreme Court, but also the circuit court, the district courts. And we're making lots of progress with our cases. And of course, we're also involved in legislation in states across the country. We can talk about that too. And then we also have a special division empowering churches to have their voice heard in very encouraging ways. So we've got a lot going on at PJI, and we do all our work without charge. Some people say, are you like this group or that group? Well, we're different, and that we don't just cherry pick high profile cases. We're very unique in that our goal is to make sure that everyone gets help, that no one is left on the side of the road. Sometimes we don't meet that goal, but most of the time we do, and it's a real joy to do that.
It's amazing.
That is amazing. So I remember it was about 10 or so years ago in Morgan Hill, California. I believe as a high school student, might have been junior high. He wore an American flag shirt and he was kicked out of school. So on your website, I found a video about a 12-year-old Christian student that was kicked out of his public school classes twice for speaking up about his faith. So here it is.
That's ridiculous.
Hi, my name is Sibusiso Nglovu. I'm 12 years old and I go to Evergreen Middle School in Everett, Washington. I'm a born-again Christian, and I was at school one day and they were talking about sex education and how it was okay to have sex with the same marriage. And I then stood up and I said, no, that is not okay. You're not allowed to have sex outside of marriage, and it's not okay for you to sleep with the same gender. And then I got kicked out of class. I felt kind of angry, but I knew I was being persecuted for my faith, but I knew that God was one day going to reward me. The second incident was a completely different day with a different teacher, and they were talking about Proverbs and how a proverb is a wise saying. And I then quoted Proverbs 20 verse 3, which says, avoiding fight is a mark of honor and only fools insist on quarreling. And then the teacher kicked me out of class.
When the mother contacted me, her son had been disciplined in English class. They were covering Proverbs, and he had decided to select a biblical proverb.
And then she said, okay, I'm gonna call your attorneys to see what they can do to help, because this is not right.
And we were able to draft a legal letter memo and sent it off to the principal and their attorneys. The mother has informed us that he has felt much more freedom and much more courage to speak up, knowing that we're here to protect him and that the school respects his religious freedoms.
Everything stopped, so now if I talk about God at school, I don't get in trouble. I appreciate Kevin and Jorge for being on my side when I really needed help, and I don't know what would have happened if my mom didn't contact them right away, so I very much appreciate it. I would just say to those people who are just like me in the same situation to not be afraid and to always stand up for what's right, because God is soon going to reward you, and no matter how intimidating the people might seem, just continue to speak out for your faith and do the right thing.
If you are harassed or unsure of what your legal rights are, go to our website, download our resources, and be confident in expressing your faith.
We love defending this young man. And if you know of someone who needs help, contact us at Pacific Justice Institute. And thank you to those of you who decide to support us prayerfully and or financially. It's greatly appreciated.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who are meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for your righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you who are insulted, persecuted, falsely accused of all the evil in the world because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For the same way they persecuted the prophets before you.
That's incredible.
Wow. So just as I mentioned, the situation that happened in Morgan Hill, that was, against our First Amendment rights, and, what happened to this young man, and God bless his soul. That takes a lot of bravery to come up and step out like that.
It does.
I know I'd have been scared out of my mind at that age.
Yeah, we had a case. We had a big case up in Seattle area. I think it was Bellevue, if I'm not mistaken. And he was removed from the school because he was sharing his faith too much. He was reprimanded once, twice. The third time, he says, "We're just completely expelling you from the school completely." He contacted us at Pacific Justice Institute. We went into court. We filed a lawsuit, and the federal judge ruled that the school cannot prevent him from sharing his faith by handing out his testimony. And it was a powerful precedent. And so we go to bat for people like him, kids. In fact, we even have a book. People can get it for free download on our website. They can download all our free resources. And it's called Reclaim Your School: How to Legally and Practically Evangelize Public Schools. We also have material on how to start a church homeschool co-op for those who don't like public schools. So we've got a lot of really valuable resources. Also in the workplace, we've got information about people employees being persecuted because of their faith, and the case we've taken on there, as well as the rights of business owners and CEOs to live their faith through their company without being afraid of being sued. So we really try to equip people.
Wow.
That's great.
How did you guys start this Pacific Justice Institute? I would love to know, because it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it was back in 1997, and at the time I was the Western coordinator for another organization back east called Rutherford, and I started an office for them, built it up for 14 Western states coordinating litigation, and then I get a call saying, "Brad, we're going to have to shut down the last regional offices, which includes yours, but we don't want to lose you. We're going to give you a promotion to head up our office in D.C. You'll be the public affairs director and higher salary." And I said yes, and then I had insomnia and I couldn't sleep. And when I was, "Dude, I got to pray about this." And I said, because when I pray, I get convicted to do stuff that requires faith, and it's not as comfortable. And I did pray, and I really felt convicted on my heart is to do what's on my heart, which is to make sure people get help where it was needed the most, which at the time was the West Coast. And now it's across the country. But so I just gave God a few little requirements: free office space. I need to have that. Free computer system. keep me on the 2 radio stations for free. You have to be in the black in just 3 months. I'm never going to charge anyone. Just a few little requirements. And God came through on all of them. And it was incredible. And now fast forward, we have 37 offices coast to coast. Every one of them is rent free. And on radio, we've got a radio station, a show called The Dacus Report, and over 1,000 radio outlets. Another TV show called Brad Dacus Live on his channel, streaming, and then another one called Faith and Law that we syndicate ourselves. So it's an exciting thing what God has done, and it's just a real joy to see what He's doing through the hard work of our attorneys across the country, all without charge.
That is beautiful.
Is amazing.
It is. That is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely amazing. So it was a couple of weeks ago, a mutual friend of mine and Brad's sent me an email on a case that's happening in Washington in regards to a transgender that had stepped into a woman's spa. Can you emphasize a little bit more about what's going on with that, Brad?
Oh, you bet. So it's not just a women's spa, it's a Korean women's spa. And I stress that because a Korean women's spa, they have a long-held tradition that you don't wear any clothes. You're naked in a Korean spa. So you can't have a co-ed Korean spa, okay?
Right.
Not without risking police raiding you and, et cetera. Right. Well, this Christian family, they're Koreans, they're strong in their Christian faith. They have a Korean women's spa there in the Seattle area. And what happens is unbelievable. Well, maybe not unbelievable today, but anyway, a man calls and he says, "Hey, I want to go in." And they said, "Are you a biological male?" He said, "Well, I see myself as a female." They said, "No, you can't."
Yeah, it's not how you see yourself.
Yeah, it's how you see yourself. They said, "Look, we've got mothers, their 13-year-old daughters, who are completely naked. No one wears clothes. They have these massage, things, scrub downs, and just absolutely not. It's absolutely not." So he files a complaint with the Washington State Human Rights Commission. This is the state government of Washington. And this is how sick the leadership is in the state of Washington. Instead of reproving him and threatening to maybe bring action for attempted to violate lewd laws, statutes, they instead contacted the Korean women's spa, the Christian family, and said, "Look, you either allow him to go into the spa and strip and be lewd and totally naked in front of 13-year-old naked girls, or we're going to shut you down and traumatize girls and mothers and everyone else there."
It's insane.
I mean, this is sick. It's demonic.
It is.
So anyway, we were contacted and we filed a lawsuit. We have 2 offices in Washington State. And we filed a lawsuit. We didn't win in the federal district court, so we appealed it to the 9th Circuit. It was a split decision, 2-1, but we were still lost. And then we filed a petition for an en banc hearing with the broader 9th Circuit. It was a split 9th Circuit. There were some dissenters on our side, but we didn't have the numbers, so we lost. And now we're filing a petition for cert to the United States Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court's going to take this one up. The facts are just very compelling, and I think they're going to take it up. And I think we're going to, Lord willing, we're going to be successful. And on behalf of this Christian-owned Korean women's spa, the bottom line issue here is there's several issues, but can a business owner be compelled in the United States of America to do something that is absolutely hideously in violation of their morals and their religious beliefs and convictions in order to have a business? And the answer should be no, they don't have to, not in the United States of America. There's not a compelling state interest to justify what the state's trying to compel them to do, which in any other circumstance would be a criminal violation and would be arrested, put behind bars. But somehow it's a right. But yet you have the same victimization, the same trauma, the same everything. It is really sick, evil, and twisted. And unfortunately, we have a political party in the United States that is overwhelmingly in favor of this sick, evil, sadistic perversion. And it's not the party that I belong to. So anyway, but I think your audience knows what I'm talking about here pretty clearly. So we're filing a petition for cert now to the United States Supreme Court. it's like an appeal to the United States Supreme Court. Like I said, I'm really hopeful that the Supreme Court is going to take it up, and if they do, it'll be great case law.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
would.
would be amazing. Yeah, that would be pretty traumatizing. Why wouldn't he just want to go somewhere else? I mean, why like hassle these people to this point? You know what I mean? Knowing that he's going to be, traumatizing everybody there.
Yeah, well,
Oh, thank God.
I think people need to know also that it's a real good question. The overall majority, over 7 out of 10, one study shows it's more closer to 9 out of 10 of men who claim to have gender confusion. They're still sexually turned on by looking at women.
Right. So that's
People
scary.
even if they have real confusion per se, they're still sexually turned on by the opposite sex.
Right. And these are young girls.
Dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous.
So it's and very traumatizing. So as well.
Very much.
Yeah.
So do you think this would be like a turning point if the decision is made to where, it affects the entire country in regards to a case as such?
Oh, yeah.
So.
It's going to validate women and their right not to be treated like dirt and animals, but to be respected. You can't say you respect women and claim that they can be at any time visually violated by a man going to a private area, just looking at them naked and then stripping in front of them, and just
and it's okay.
You respect women and young girls, and even just human decency. So I think it's going to set great case law. I think once again, we don't know for sure the Supreme Court's going to take it up, but I think they will.
I hope they will.
And if they do, it's going to send a loud signal to states like California and Governor Gavin Newsom and the like. Because he's behind this stuff. He's passed legislation pushing this kind of material.
Well, as well as his wife, Gavin Newsom's wife. I've seen her displaying books on things that are not right with our nation.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Very evil.
Yes, it is. It is. Absolutely. Before we went live, you were talking about a case over in Texas. Go ahead and fill us in on that. What's going on in Texas?
I know people say Texas. Isn't that where the Angels go for vacation? In Texas, and, Bible Belt, and
yeah.
Well, in fact, it's a little town located just northwest of Waco, Texas. So it's a small town outside a medium-sized town in Texas.
Yeah,
and it's involving parents' rights. This superintendent decided he was going to cancel the graduation ceremony of a public school district, public high school, because he said we came up with some reasons which were not really accurate. The truth is, he wanted a perfect record. He wanted every student graduating, and since some students didn't meet the criteria, he said no one's going to graduate until we get all the students to meet the criteria, do their homework, pass the test, and do whatever.
Wow. And
it's really sick. Well, it gets worse. The parents appeared at a public school board meeting with him, and they voiced their opposition. They didn't threaten him. They didn't start violence or mob or, throw things or, no, they just vocalized their opposition. Well, before they could fully express themselves, he had the police remove them from the meeting, which is a violation of the constitutional rights of redress of government. And but it gets worse. So the parents spoke out against him, and then he brought retribution against the children of those parents, and retribution of lowering the grades. And one of them, actually, these children were of the valedictorian, and he personally went and lowered her grades in 2 classes so she wouldn't be valedictorian anymore.
Wow. Isn't that wrong?
Yeah, this guy, he's for real. This guy's, and he's now a superintendent of a school district down by Galveston, Texas, Hitchcock, I think, school district. But he, something like that. Anyway,
that sounds like retaliation. Isn't that against the law, or is that just per state?
No, it's against the law. It's totally against the law. And yet it's the number one reason why parents don't want to file a lawsuit for fear of retaliation, retribution against their children.
Right.
And it's very real. Well, that's why this case was so important, because it set a whole new tone and precedent, if you will, regarding school districts being accountable for doing that. And, in fact, and then after the valedictorian, I got reinstated as a valedictorian. Then he said, "Oh, by the way, we're not going to have a valedictorian speech this year." So the guy's just a real punk, and the superintendent is. And so we went ahead, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of the parents. No one else, I think, would have, taken this case on. We did, and Janelle, one of our attorneys on staff, just did a fantastic job, and Adam Draper did a great job. Well, they litigated it, and the case just went totally our way. The jury came out with a verdict in favor of our clients and against
thank gosh.
not just the school district, but specifically against the superintendent. And it was a $7.5 million judgment, most of it against the superintendent.
Wow. I love that.
It's a fantastic decision, and we're really excited about it.
That's great.
Wow. Because that affects their future, like their college. I mean, if you change their GPA, that could affect scholarships. That could affect all kinds of things, right? So this guy is just interfering with their entire future.
Oh yeah,
That's wrong.
Oh yeah, and this girl that became valedictorian, her family, none of them have ever been valedictorian. Her relatives,
Right.
She worked extra hard
Right.
to overcome hurdles, and just from day one, she was totally determined to apply herself from kindergarten all the way on up. She was
Right.
motivated, and here she reaches that point only to have it snatched, and
By
other
some-
students face similar retribution. And so it was a great decision. And I think it sends a loud signal to school districts across the country.
Right.
If you try to bring retribution and retaliation against children because parents speak up and oppose what you're doing,
Right.
you better watch out, because
Yeah.
we at Pacific Justice Institute stand ready to sue and
Right.
to bring you down and to hold you accountable for your actions.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful thing.
Retaliation is a terrible thing, and a lot of people are frightened of it. It's
Oh, especially in school districts. They're horrible.
yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
lived in a senior community before, and a lot of the seniors were afraid to speak up against their management. So they didn't want to get kicked out and be on the streets at their age. So
Can you imagine?
I can imagine, kids needing to change schools. They're set. They have their friends there. They speak up, like the young man who spoke up in the video I played earlier. That was a really brave thing to do.
Yeah, that
especially
was.
at that age.
That was
It's
pretty good.
a lot of courage. A lot of courage.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And we love going back for people all across the country. I stress the 37 offices coast to coast because, I know some organizations will have one office in Dallas or one office in Phoenix, one office in Virginia or wherever. But because we have such a huge footprint across the country,
Yeah.
we can take cases on everywhere. My personal goal is for Satan to have no place to go for vacation in the United States.
That's a beautiful
That's
goal.
good.
That's my goal. No city council, no school board.
I love that.
Wherever tyranny exists, there's going to be no free ride. We're going to take them on and take on these injustices. And it's just a real joy to be able to do that and be uniquely positioned at Pacific Justice Institute to do just that. I do want to mention to the audience, if they want to keep up with our many cases, we have an easy way to do it. It's just to go to our website, pji.org. They can sign up to get our free e-newsletter, and they can pray for our work and pray for our cases. It's a spiritual war as much as it's legal.
Yes.
And they just go to pji.org, pji.org.
And there it is up on screen.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a
so
lot of people that
know,
will
the-
probably be reaching out right now. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago when I was searching around, different places to live in the United States. I was really surprised. The state of Kentucky, there's like a purple-haired teacher, and we know which direction that was heading. Not a good one, obviously. And I'm just, appalled by it. I talked to some of my Patriot friends in the South Silicon Valley area, and we're all in awe and shock of what's all going on. I came over to Southwest Missouri because I have family here, so. yeah, so we definitely need to be more outspoken like that young man again. We need to step up, be bold, be courageous, every single one of us. But there's something that happened before the pandemic in 2019. I want to play a little video of this about a Christian boarding school that was unjustly raided by the government
This
officials.
one's terrifying. Ugh.
Really hard. It was surreal. It was very surreal. We were raided. I mean, I don't even know. I still don't know why.
That is
I
terrifying.
received a urgent call regarding a warrant that was being served on a Christian boarding school in Northern California. Approximately 16 California Highway Patrol officers armed with 2 canine units and 17 other investigators had appeared on this campus.
And they were lined up along the side of our road here. We're here to search every building.
I was shocked to see that it was an FBI style warrant. It was very broad. It had kick-down orders, meaning that the police could kick down doors.
It was out of a movie. It was unnecessary.
And there were a couple girls that were coming to me very upset and very emotional with the kinds of questions they were asking that were way too personal.
It was very agenda-driven question formulation. It was like they walked them into answering it a certain way.
The Department of Social Services started this process of getting this warrant against this school because of a tip, a hit piece from an internet tabloid. This is not a proper basis for a warrant to use 10-year-old information from hearsay.
They drove up to the front entrance and then came up to the office.
Our office manager and human resources has staff files. They had access to those. In the back is our student file room. The files that they were going through were student records, student transcripts, cumulative files, family history, vaccination records. It's pretty invasive.
The real bottom line motivation for this, we've discovered, is the fact that the Department of Social Services and those who are behind this raid were actually wanting to shut this school down because they knew it was teaching from a Christian biblical worldview.
A license with the state of California will force the school to give students the right to spiritual and sexual exploration. And that's something that a Christian school can't do. It's something that the parents who have enrolled their children in that school would not be in favor of.
I think what I love about this school is it's so unique. There's such a great need for this, I think, in our country and especially in our state. It's very loving, it's very creative, it's very sincere and authentic. It's just back to what's simple and important in life. I got saved here. My parents, my mom and my stepdad, ended up getting saved through this process too. I was very anti-Christian my whole life. Like the girl that would go through the classrooms in school and try and prove any Christian wrong. It was just the consistency of here, living it out, is what really sold me on these people in this place. We want to have a little bit of everything. There's not one shoe fits all for any kid, right? And we have this smorgasbord of people here with different talents, and we'd like to just utilize everything to give them the most optimal experience that we can provide.
The typical child that comes here, a young one, is that of all teenagers, they got a little bit of rebellion in them. They've made wrong choices. In those choices, there's repercussions, but by coming to the school, they begin to learn what their choices can do if they make the right choice. And to be here on Parents' Day, when the parents come to see them and see the changes in their children, to meet some of the parents, to see the tears on their face when they see their son or daughter have accepted Jesus and they're different. It makes the time and what the school do here special.
Everything that's written into the fabric of this school and this ministry and its goals is good. And to have little things be twisted and be made to look bad, that's a tough one to swallow, especially when it comes from agencies that should be trusted.
You may have children in a private Christian school, or you may know people who have children in a private Christian school. This case law is the foundation that defends private Christian schools, period. That's how important this is. In fact, they could even stretch this to challenge the rights of parents with regards to homeschooling as well. Thank you for those of you who decide to be a part of our team in helping us in this very important hour in defense of freedom.
Gosh, that is
Wow.
amazing.
So California, to my understanding, passes laws that are not constitutional because it puts harm to children. Is that correct?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yes, that is definitely correct, and that's why we need to go to bat for them. You know, we have in California, there's laws saying allowing children to be secretly groomed to LGBTQ for gender confusion or same-sex attraction without parents knowing about it. Well, the Supreme Court in another case separate from ours made a decision in saying, California, you got to stop that. That case is still going on, but we're taking on these cases across the country, wherever they pop up to make sure that these zealous, dark blue states don't get away with it.
Right.
It's really shocking. Like in New Jersey, you have all these teachers being ordered by the Attorney General that have to lie to parents to secretly cover up, grooming and using different pronouns and different names.
Wow.
We don't take that lightly. Our attorney there in New Jersey, Karen White out of Trenton, New Jersey, she's litigating. We filed a lawsuit against the state of New Jersey because we want to make sure that we stand up against the tyranny. Public schools have become very different than when I was a kid.
Me too.
Most teachers were to the left back then. I get that, but they weren't aggressively indoctrinating children into gender confusion and sexual experimentation and then treating kids from who have a Christian worldview as ignorant and hate-filled because of their Christian beliefs. Right. This is very common, and that's why it's so important for us to do what we do to so aggressively take on these cases across the country.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing.
Me too. Thank goodness. Right.
Yeah. Well, we've got a great team making it happen, and it's real exciting to see what they're doing. We have another big case in Oregon that just came down, the decision yesterday, not a week ago, just yesterday, and this Christian couple, it was let's see, Sean and Teresa. They were wanted to be foster parents, and they were told, "Oh, okay, you can be foster parents, but just one little thing, you have to deny your religious beliefs, and you have to specifically pledge that if in the hypothetical you get a child, that claims to have gender confusion, because maybe the school that they're going to is planting these thoughts in their minds when they're very vulnerable, maybe at 12, 13, that you have to affirm it. You can't even be neutral. You have to affirm it and go along with it and do the new name and the new pronouns. Well, they said, well, we're Christians. We can't do that. We love children. We can't encourage any confusion, much less confusion that we know is harmful and wrong for that child. And statistically, it is harmful, and it's not the way to go because their suicide rate goes way up, as opposed to if they're left alone. The stats show they're just left alone. They will, by the time they graduate, they'll no longer have gender confusion. So it's just inhumane. Yeah. And we went and filed a lawsuit on their behalf. We lost at the lower court, which is not unusual.
Right.
And then we appealed it. And the Oregon Appellate Court yesterday came down and reversed that decision.
Yay!
It said you can't do that, Oregon. You can't completely just purge Christians from being able to be foster parents, which is
Right.
basically what they were doing. That's the kind of intolerance and hate that was being displayed by the state of Washington, state of Oregon, and their policies.
Right. That's insane. It's always the state level. You cannot get nowhere on the state level. You always got to go up, right?
Yeah,
It seems like
oftentimes, especially in a state like Oregon, Washington, California, New York, New England, Illinois, those are states when we take them on. We know we're going to probably have to have several appeals.
Right.
But this is a great decision in the right direction, and
Yes.
Awesome.
it's just a real joy to have that. We took on a lot of cases for religious freedom, dealing with employees in the workplace who are being fired because of their religious convictions against taking an experimental vaccine that turned out really wasn't a vaccine because it didn't prevent transmission. That's the COVID-19 vax.
Right.
Well, all across the nation, there weren't just thousands or hundreds. There were hundreds of thousands, if not several million, of people of faith who said, I will not take that. I just feel it's wrong. I've prayed about it. And other organizations wouldn't lift a finger. I'm not going to say their names. It wouldn't be needed, but they have bigger budgets, but they said, no, we're not going to touch those. And so I told our chief counsel, I says, we have to take these on. He told me, he says, Brad, you realize, I mean, this is like feeding the 5,000 with a loaf of bread. I mean, this is huge. Or 5 loaves and 2 fishes. This is huge.
Yeah.
So we went, but I said, if we don't, who will?
Right.
So
Nobody.
we led the nation, and we took on more cases than even private law firms, even the EEOC didn't take on as many as we did on this area. And we redid our website. We streamlined it. We redid our answering system, our phone system, so everyone was taking in the calls.
That's awesome.
And we did it. And one of our big cases, we have victories all over the country. We still have cases in litigation, but came down from my favorite city to sue. Just take a guess. What do you think my favorite city to sue is?
San Francisco?
San Francisco.
Yes. Hey, we got a winner.
LA's closer to home, but San Francisco.
A second, right? It's a runner-up.
It's a runner-up. It's a runner-up because there's so much intolerance and bigotry against people of faith in both cities. Well, we took on San Francisco, and we got for 6 employees. They refused to take a settlement. They said, no, we want public vindication. We take a settlement, it's going to be hush-hush. We want public vindication. We want to expose San Francisco for the intolerance and the bigotry that they've displayed. So we took it to court, and the jury came back 9-0 against San Francisco, and they came back with a judgment, a seismic $7.8 million judgment against the city of San Francisco. They're appealing it, of course, but we're fighting it on appeal, and
win.
It's a big case. It's a great case, and I say 7.8 because it's sort of like an earthquake. It's we caught the attention of the secular news services, legal journals. It was a big case, big win for our clients.
That is
great. That's huge.
That is great.
Awesome.
So you mentioned some offices are provided to you for free, but how do you all get funding?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. We don't get any government money because we sue the government.
Right, and I was going to say we can.
You're not on their Christmas list, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So we get it basically from moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas. Churches often support us. I do a lot of guest preaching at churches, and so more and more churches find out about us, and then we serve the churches, and we help them overcome all kinds of restrictions and hostile governments. Like San Francisco Bay Area is just notorious for trying to prevent churches from building or occupying or being in town. It's just outrageous. So they treat churches like the plague. Well, we come in and we file lawsuits on behalf of those churches. We had a great case, and it was against the city of Salinas, the town of Salinas, and they wouldn't let a church be in a downtown area because they said churches weren't fun enough. And that's a quote. It's an actual quote. They said, quote, your church is not fun enough. Fun. I mean, they could have used a more complicated word with more than one syllable, but
more than 3 letters for that matter.
Just fun. It's not
Yeah,
fun
past
enough.
the
That
third
was,
grade level, maybe past the third grade level.
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, that was the reason, not fun enough. I thought, wait a minute, they have to show a compelling state interest according to the Equal Access Act, the federal statute, and the Constitution. Really?
Unreal.
So we
It's not
brought the lawsuit in federal court, and the federal judge ruled in favor of the city, said, yeah, churches aren't fun enough. That's a good reason to keep out churches. And the thing is, there's a post office right there in the downtown area too.
It's not very fun either.
Since when is a post office fun? I mean, really. I mean, my posters, is not on the wall. They don't have me, but I just feel uncomfortable when I go in a post office. I don't know why. It's government. I don't know. So they're not always friendly. They work for the government. They don't have to be, I guess. Usually. So,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there's good post people. Don't get me wrong, but the bottom line is they were allowed, and they're not more fun than a church.
Churches can be pretty fun.
Yes, exactly. So we went ahead and we filed an appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Ninth Circuit looked at the case and said, "Really, fun is your compelling state interest? Really?" And they reversed 3-0, ruled in favor of the church, and a great, wonderful case law that we use to this day to help protect churches and synagogues that are told that they can't build and be in communities. Usually it's because of bigotry and hostility by those who don't like Jewish people or Christians. And I like to say that that's gone down. Our successes defending churches and synagogues has gone way up. Unfortunately, though, the hate and the bigotry against Christians and Jews in America has gone way up, and including on university campuses. I'd like to talk about that specifically when we saw these mobs. It was like going back to Nazi Germany, looking at Kristallnacht, where there were just mobs intimidating and spitting and threatening Jews. I thought in the United States of America,
it's pretty evil.
So we made a pledge, Tim and Tanya, we made a pledge, and I made it public, that we will defend and represent every Jewish student and Christian student who is harassed by any mob on any campus, high school or college, or being harassed by any of these intolerant, bigoted professors, over 100 of which teach at Columbia University. They all signed off on this basic, what I call a pro-Hamas letter against the Jews in Israel. So we went ahead and we made this pledge. We took on a case of a high school down in Santa Barbara. We prevailed there. We have another one dealing with the university. We're investigating right now in the state of Texas. We're taking these on anywhere they may show up. That's our commitment. Another commitment we made was for Turning Point USA. About 3.5 years ago, we pledged to them that we will defend every single one of their chapters, high school or college, without charge, if they're harassed or treated bigoted or whatever. And we've been taking on these cases. Of course, when Charlie Kirk passed away, it was a terrible, terrible thing to happen. But yet it was a fire. It lit a fire in the hearts of so many young adults. And the number of chapters more than quadrupled overnight. And we have a case defending a chapter, for example, down in Tucson, Arizona, on behalf of Turning Point USA. And we gladly will defend every single one of them without charge. That's who we are at PJI.
You guys are doing incredible work.
Yes,
Incredible work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So is this just for, Christian and Jewish schools and churches and synagogues, or is it like, for instance, with the schools, like if the student, is having an issue at public school, can they still, their parents reach out to you?
Yeah, if they, not just private schools, but also public schools, definitely. And we defend everyone's religious freedom in the United States. Because if you don't defend everyone's religious freedom, you're really defending no one's religious freedom. Now, so we're very committed. Now, that said, I'm also not naive. I've studied and I've learned that there's a difference, for example, between a family that's a quiet Muslim family that is not zealous and radicalized and Islamic, radical, and those that are. And those that need to be aggressively addressed and monitored by the FBI and the CIA.
Right.
There is a clear difference. You know, it's interesting among Muslims, those who take their faith the most seriously, who are the most zealous, are the most dangerous. With Christianity and Judaism, it's the opposite.
Right.
Those who take their faith the most seriously and the most zealously are actually the safest people to be around. And so, you know, we look at that, and yet at the same time, we understand as long as people are not a threat, they're respectful of other people, then, you know, they need to have their religious right to practice their faith protected as well.
Correct.
And that's a true free nation, which is what we have here in the United States, which they don't have in all of the Middle East, with the exception of one country, Israel.
Right. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember during the Recall Gavin 2020 movement and collecting signatures, I ran into people with so many different backgrounds, and
Yeah.
not just religion, but all different people, doctors, lawyers, name the race, they signed it.
Because, yeah, it wouldn't have mattered.
Everybody knows how bad California is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still is, unfortunately. I mean, look at the gas prices. That's all tax. No, it's more than 61 cents of that per gallon is gas on tax.
Taxes.
Yeah.
But I mean, getting back to the point is, we all came together, to stand for a cause, and we all need to stand together with Brad, because this is a great cause. My screen's a little backwards right now. Let me point it the right direction here.
Well, and you got to bring it to their attention when it's happening. That's why they're there. They're here to help.
Yeah.
So reach out, right? That's the purpose.
Exactly. And it's easy to contact us on our website. It's just 3 letters, pji.org, O-R-G. And then we've got other great resources. I'm going to mention, if you don't mind, a couple that we get a lot of requests for. One is our opt-out forms for parents who have kids in public schools.
Okay.
We've customized them, updated them in view of the recent Supreme Court decision last summer, and which protects parents' rights to opt their children out of virtually anything that violates their standards, their morals, their religious beliefs, convictions in any class, not just sex education, but history, art, social studies, you name it, even math for that matter, if they're word problems that are pushing an agenda. So it's a fantastic opt-out forms. And we don't just give them the opt-out forms for free. We say, and by the way, if you have any pushback, any disrespect for this opt-out form, you call us and we can represent you and sue without charge.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great resource. Another one we have is protecting parents who have social workers knocking on their door or investigating their family.
Right.
It's critical, because if parents don't download this article, it's called 12 Steps to Protect Your Child Against CPS or Child Protective Services, social workers. 12 steps to protect your child. If they don't download it, they don't know what to do. And they say, many say, well, if we're ever called by a social worker, or they ever knock on our door, then we'll download it. It's too late.
Yeah, you got to have it.
The critical decision is how you deal with them when they first contact you as a parent. And we have it for free download on our website. And I tell people, they say, well, my kids are grown up. Oh, that's great. But what about your grandkids?
Right.
What about the parents in your church or your synagogue?
Right.
Or your mosque?
Or your neighbors, anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
You download it, and it's free. We don't charge anything. Download it, print it out. It's easy. It's short. It's very to the point. Every family in America should have it, so they know exactly how to keep their child from being wrongfully taken. So many children are wrongfully taken.
I know. This is a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing.
Yeah. One example, it was up in Placer County, California, outside of Sacramento. And get this, Tanya, what happened? This girl, she's like 13, 14. She says to a friend that she thinks she might be a boy because all the stuff she's hearing in the public school. And bottom line, a social worker ends up going to her family and saying, do you realize your daughter thinks that, sees herself identifies as a boy? And they said, well, we know she's having some questions and things, but we're a Christian family, and we're having work with our pastor and a Christian counselor, and we're going to work this through with her. We love our daughter. And the social worker said, no, you're not. I've got a warrant to take your daughter. And they took her daughter.
Uh-oh.
The daughter
Brad's
did not,
freezing.
yeah. And
You're
the
freezing
daughter
up a
did not
little.
want to be
There you are.
taken.
Okay.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we stepped in, and they wanted to immediately get guardianship, and so they could start the injections, testosterone injections. So that, and it would permanently sterilize her, and then have a surgery to cut off body parts before she was even 18.
Wow.
The state, Governor Gavin Newsom, this is his agenda. The state was pushing this. We were fortunately called by that family. They knew who we were.
Yeah.
And we quickly went right into court, and we prevented the first injection. And we fought it for 2 years. We finally got her restored back with her family. And here's the kicker. In the last hearing, she said to the judge, Your Honor, I'm glad you're letting me go back to my mom and dad, but I just want you to know something. I don't even feel like I'm a boy anymore.
Good.
And yet the psychiatrist working, the shrink, I'll call him a shrink,
yes,
working for CPS, social services, he said, oh, we got to take the child. We got to start the injections immediately. That's how messed up a lot of psychiatrists out there. Most of them, the majority of them are dangerous, I think, today because of the kind of counseling that they'll give our children. And that's why parents need to be very careful.
Yeah, they have a lot of power too.
There's a saying I heard years back that the psychiatrist is more crazy than the patient. And this sounds like the case.
Yeah, most of the overall majority of those of psychiatrists and psychologists have had emotional, mental issues to deal with, and that's why they went into psychology.
Correct.
So, but there's some good ones out there. I know some that I recommend, but it's very concerning. And then speaking of psychologists, Tim and Tanya, the Supreme Court came down with that recent decision in Colorado, out of Colorado, where they said, look, Colorado, your law preventing a Christian counselor from giving solid biblical, viewpoint counseling for a child who wants that counseling, who's struggling with same-sex attraction or gender identity dysphoria. They said, Colorado says you can't do that. It's illegal. You can only give counseling that encourages the dysphoria, encourages the same-sex lifestyle. And so this went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decisively 8-1. Kagan and Sotomayor even sided with this. Jackson, she has no business being on the court, in my opinion. She's not competent, not qualified, but that's another story. Well, neither is Sotomayor, but she at least voted the right way. 8-1 saying this violates the free speech rights of counselors. You can't claim Colorado to have a compelling state interest for mental health reasons when most of the states in the country disagree with you and allow this kind of counseling.
Right.
So it's a fantastic decision. It's technically being brought down to the federal district court for them to rehear the case based on a compelling state interest standard. So it's still technically got to go through the process, but we know where it's going. And I want to make it something really clear. If there's any Christian counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist out there watching this, and you've been tongue-tied, you've been limited on how you can give counseling that the person wants in agreement with their faith with regards to these issues of LGBTQ, you give us a call. We stand ready to file a lawsuit on your behalf all across the United States without charge.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. So let's switch hats a little bit. Coming up October 17th, 2026, it's a Saturday. You have a celebration of justice. So
I love it.
Let us know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, every year we have a celebrity that people know about. Last year we had Eric Trump. We had Charlie Kirk not that long ago. Dennis Prager. We've had all kinds of people. Greg Gutfeld, Jesse Waters. We've had a number of different people that people know who they are. Anyways, it's a big event. I've been told it's the nicest, biggest event of its kind in anywhere in Southern California put on by any organization.
Awesome.
It's the food is no chickens allowed. That's my rule. No chicken. I've been to too many events with chicken, so we have no
Me
chicken.
too.
It's often a filet mignon or lobster or something. You know, it's really good. And then the speaker is always a major draw. I can't announce who that speaker is.
Okay.
My staff won't let me do that, but I will give you a hint.
Okay.
She is on Fox News, and she appears on more than one show frequently. And she's an attorney, and that's all I'm going to say.
I know.
Okay.
But
I
she's
know.
very, very bright, very outspoken, and so I'm going to give people a little. That's probably too much of a hint. You probably
Yeah, that's a good hint.
Yeah, I'm like ready to blurt out. I'm not going
I know.
to.
I won't share it.
She's really good and very sharp and
Good.
so anyway, it's going to be a fantastic event. We talk about it's, and when people leave it, they're positive. We encourage them with all the successes, the advances, the progress that we're seeing happening. It's not a time to be depressed. I will tell you, when I became an attorney, if you were to tell me that we'd see these kind of victories on limiting government, respecting the sanctity of human life, and states' rights to do that, and parents' rights, religious freedom. In fact, we're seeing the biggest breakthroughs for parents' rights since our inception as a nation, since maybe the 1920s. You have to go back over 100 years,
right?
To get the kind of case law we have. Unbelievable. And then religious freedom, same thing.
Right.
So it's a great event. It's a great event.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
It's sold out every year. It's always sold out. Last several years, it's sold out. So if people wait until the month before, they're probably not. They're probably going to get.
They're not getting in.
I think a sponsor a table if they like as well. We have nice perks for table sponsors, and
that's great.
That's nice.
Yeah, and then I get to speak, and I get to give just the update, of what's happening and what's happening on the ground on the front lines, and that's always real encouraging for people.
So we're just about out of time, so I want to wrap it up really quick here. So ladies and gentlemen, definitely go to pji.org. That's P as in Paul, J as in James, I as in indigo.org. Take a look to see what Brad's doing. You can actually find the link for the gala there as well. See what Brad's doing, see what you do to get involved, or just to help out and donate. Those are in Southern California and Anaheim on October 17th, 2026. You definitely take a look at the celebration of justice. Definitely an amazing event, as Brad was just talking about. Also, like, share, and follow on Tim Holliday TV. That's TimHolliday TV. We are live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, and we are also on iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. Thank you, Brad, for being on.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Everyone have a great evening.